So one of the things, one of the things that I've been noticing, and y'all can check me if I'm wrong, the WWE stories, they're getting so much better. And I feel like we're starting to really see that be played out with this Liv Morgan revenge tour, right? This idea of I'm going to take your title, I'm going to take your spotlight. And now we're seeing things get spicy with Dominic Mysterio. On one episode of Raw, we saw Liv Morgan kiss Dominic Mysterio at the end of the show. On the latest episode of Raw, we saw Liv flirting with Dom trying to refute it. And Dom, it was even one point where Dom was smiling a little bit. And I think that these stories are being so well done because it is rewarding the audience who was here last year, right? We saw, not last year, but, a couple years prior to the Judgment Day, we saw Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan team up, right? And we saw where Rhea betrayed Liv. And now we're seeing Liv come back on this revenge tour, and it just makes sense. And it feels great as a fan because it feels like my watching and my viewership and my fandom was not in vain. And it all just makes sense, right? She has the World Women's Championship. She beat Becky Lynch, forced her into an early retirement, and Becky's contract status being what it is, because it's left to the unknown, it's like, oh, did Liv really put Becky out? And then now with the whole Dominic Mysterio thing, here's the reason why the Dominic Mysterio thing is so captivating and cool. Because nobody in this situation looks weak. And in fact, a lot of characters are being enhanced. Because as Liv continues to tamper with Dom continues to gain more heat. He continues to gain more heat. And now because we see him with Rhea, him with Liv, two women who the WWE universe considers to be beautiful, attractive women, he's being portrayed as this desirable man, this desirable figure for one reason or another. You know what I mean? Like he has things and people that are attracted to him. It positions him to be desirable. And it kind of positions him to be kind of this playboy-esque figure, which I think is also a play on what Eddie Guerrero used to be, right? When he was dealing with China and, sometimes he got caught up, it gave this perception that Eddie Guerrero was a desirable man. And we're now kind of seeing a modern iteration of that when it comes to Dominic Mysterio and Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley. Every time Liv Morgan tampers with Dominic Mysterio, it only shows how Liv Morgan, how petty she is, and how not desperate, but how adamant she is for getting this revenge on Rhea, and how adamant she is by driving this wedge between Judgment Day, because it's not just a matter of flirting with Dom in and of itself. It's the fact that there are people in the Judgment Day who disagree with this idea of Liv Morgan and Dominic being close, because they know the relationship that Dominic and Rhea have. So now, because of this, you have a sense of tension within the faction. And then on the other side of it, the longer that Rhea Ripley stays out, the more you're thinking like, yo, when this woman comes back, she's smoking her. She's smoking her bad. And I think that part of the reason why this storyline is so prominent and so good is because it plays to the strength of everyone, and it plays to the sub-narratives within the larger narrative, right? The tension in the Judgment Day that is going to cause this inevitable split. This Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley rift that has been brewing for years. And you can even make the argument that this is contributing to the individual identity of Dominic Mysterio, right? Him being with his father was the only time he was really associated with the Mysterio name, and that was very, very brief. But so many dramatic things have happened since then that you cannot just say Dominic is Ray's kid, because there's so many things that have happened separate and apart from him that allows him to gain and to develop his own identity. And I think that that's another just a big thing that I'm a fan of. Another thing that I wanted to kind of touch on was this Chad Gable story. This Chad Gable, Alpha Academy, Otis and Tozawa and Maxine story. This idea that Chad Gable is so obsessed with the Intercontinental Championship and winning it that he is willing to turn into someone who he never intended to be. And now he is projecting his failures onto Otis and Tozawa and expecting things from them that he has not fulfilled himself. And then seeing how his interactions with Otis are essentially kind of reassigning this love, this long lost love for Otis. We haven't seen this love for Otis since his Money in the Bank tenure and since his tenure with Mandy Rose. And it seems like we're getting that, and that's coming back. Otis is such a lovable figure. He's always been a lovable figure. When he was with Heavy Machinery, he was a lovable figure. But now we're seeing that same love return back to him. And we're seeing it in the form of the storyline between Chad Gable and Sami Zayn. And once again, multiple things are at play, right? We saw Chad Gable lose to Sami Zayn in Montreal, right? Sami wins in his hometown. When Chad challenged for the Intercontinental title before that against Gunter, Chad lost in his hometown. That's a form, and now we're seeing this frustration that comes from a form of projection, right? And then while we have this interaction between Chad and Sami, we have this interaction between Chad and Otis, Chad and Maxine, Chad and Tozawa. And now we're having some sub-narratives within there because now we're seeing the redevelopment of Otis as Otis. And then we're also seeing the possible formation of an Alpha Academy 2.0 with Chad Gable and Alpha and the Creed brothers. I feel like everybody compares Chad Gable to Kurt Angle, and rightfully so. They're very, very, very similar. However, I feel like this idea that Chad Gable and the Creed brothers can be the new Team Angle, I feel like that's spot on. And I even think that they can even go a little bit further, because I feel like the thing that Team Angle never had was the extensive run and the ability to grow together. We saw Kurt as a mentor to Shelton and Charlie. But I feel like because Chad is young and the Creed brothers are young, Chad could still be a mentor, but we can really see these guys grow together as a unit. And I think that that's super, super exciting. But I just want to say, WWE stories have been significantly better because of the precedent that the Bloodline set. The Bloodline set a precedent and a trend in which you have to pay attention to the program. You have to pay attention to the little details and the little nuances that happen in the background, that happen in this corner, that happen, oh, why did she leave that thing in this ring? Oh, why did she give this person this look? We're even starting to see commentary around Jade and Bianca. And it follows in the vein of what we saw with the Bloodline. This idea that you need to be watching every week, because if you don't, you're going to miss something. And now the Bloodline, and specifically Roman Reigns, has created a trend in which you have to pay attention to the product in order to, one, understand it, and two, be able to feel rewarded when there is a payoff at the end, because you saw the little thing over here and the little thing over there, and you were like, I knew it. We got to thank the Bloodline because of all of this that's happening right now with Liv Morgan and the Revenge Tour, along with the Judgment Day here, and then we have Chad Gable and Sami Zayn for the Intercontinental title over there, and we're getting glimpses a little bit of Jade and Bianca. It is because of Roman Reigns and the Bloodline that Raw has become must-see TV, because it set a precedent where if you want to be on this program, you have to create a story where the fans have to watch. They have to see what's going on, unless they're going to be left behind. But I want to know how y'all feel about these WWE programs. Clearly, I'm very, very passionate about it. I want to know what y'all feel about these WWE programs and the storylines that are going into it, because I think it's just phenomenal. We're moving on.